Okay. Also, you guys check out, if you have missed some warrior hours in the past, I am starting to like upload all those. I'm getting caught up. It just takes forever for me to download them and get them uploaded, and I can only do like one at a time, and it just takes a while to get them actually uploaded to YouTube, just because they're like, you know, an hour to an hour and a half long, so it just takes a while. And then sometimes I'm like, I'll upload it and I kind of forget about it. And so then the next day I'm like, oh yeah, I want to upload another one. So I'm uploading like one a day. I think I did get 2 uploaded yesterday. And they were from the weeks that I was gone. So it was like Brittany's and Alicia's that she did as well. And so if you missed those days, I think it'd be great to go back and kind of rewatch those if you need just some extra motivation. Yes, sir.
I want to tell one more thing.
Okay, one more thing. What do you got? Okay, show. Okay, you want to show them the different sharks? Okay. Last page, we're going to show you guys the different sharks here. So what do we have with this one? What's this one?
Hammerhead.
Ooh, the hammerhead shark. He's cool. And do you remember what this one was called? This one was the smallest one, and he's the spined pygmy shark.
Spined pygmy shark.
Yeah, he's the one that has the glow-in-the-dark belly. Remember?
Yeah, the glow-in-the-dark belly.
Yeah. And then
the scariest.
The scariest is the great white shark, right?
The scariest is the great white shark. He puts his eyes right up his brain.
Oh yeah, that's right. He rolls his eyes into the back of his head when he's biting to protect his eyes. In case you guys wanted to know that. And there's a picture of his eyes rolled in the back while he's biting something. And then this is what? Which one is he? He likes Sonic.
Yeah.
He's the fastest.
Yes.
He can go up to 20 miles an hour.
20 miles?
Underwater. That's like pretty crazy to think about. If you were like in the water and saw that, I'm out. That's the Mako shark.
Mako shark.
Yeah.
The fastest in 20 seconds.
20 miles an hour.
20 miles an hour.
There you go. All right, dude, go eat your strawberries, okay? Because I can see them in your cheek. Love you. All right. All right. No, yeah, there's no bones here. Actually, that's one of the pages is how they just have like cartilage and stuff. And so you can like feel your nose to figure out what cartilage is and stuff. I'm like, we're loving these books. They just like, they open up so much conversation with him, you know, that I wouldn't think to have just, you know, coming out of my own brain. But like when we're like reading something and like sometimes we took like 5 minutes a page, just like talking about them and looking at the pictures and all this stuff. So it's been really fun. And just watching his brain work is super cool. I'm sure all you guys can agree. Alrighty. So going off of yesterday, we did like the fun little assessment, you know, and like making decisions and kind of just like trusting ourselves. And I was looking for more assessments, but I'm not gonna lie, you guys, like all the ones I could find were just like, they were terrible. They were just like, weren't very good. But in searching for those, I found 2 videos that I thought were pretty cool. They're by the same guy, and I've never listened to this guy before. Yes. Okay, I will. I'll talk to him about it afterwards, okay? Nope.
Yes.
Nope.
Yes.
Dear, go eat your food, please. Okay. Love you. You want to get a star today? You need to be good. Take away that sticker. Okay, so the videos though, they're very different than anything that I think that we have ever really watched. So I'm kind of interested in to hear your guys' little feedback, but it's still based off of personal assessments and recognizing who you are and how it's coming off from other people. So I still think that it's going to be in the same realm of what we talked about, but I didn't quite find any other like personal assessment videos that I thought were worth it. Like there were some, but I was like, this is stupid. I don't know. I was just being really critical of them, I think probably, but it just nothing that I thought I wanted to like, I felt like it was a waste of time if we did them. So when I found these videos, I was like, they're still in the same topic, and I think that we're really going to enjoy them. So I'm kind of excited because it's very different. I'm not going to lie, I think this guy is an ex-military guy. So his content is very, I would say, like, very harsh, probably. But I enjoyed it. So I think that typically when I enjoy something, you guys will enjoy it too. So I did watch the first one because it was short. I kind of stopped in the second one because you guys know I like to enjoy those with you. But the first one, let me get a screen share here for you. Okay, so the first one is pretty shorter, and then I'll go right into the next one as well. But I think total, they're both like 15 minutes anyway. And I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea. I just, disclaimer, I don't know why this guy is holding a knife in the first video. That sounds weird, I don't know. But just listen to him, because I still think it's really worth it.
A family vacation in a Verbo means leaving all the craziness behind. Well, maybe.
Self-awareness, self-assessment, and self-improvement begin. And how do they continue over time?
Well, they're all tied together. And it starts with being self-aware, with being able to detach, because if you can't detach from yourself, then you can't see yourself. And so people ask, how do you detach from yourself? How do you learn to do that? And a good drill for this is try to imagine the way other people see you and what other people are thinking of you. And one place where this happens, and it definitely happened to me, is when I started getting put in charge of things. I started thinking about other people's perspectives. What are they seeing? If you're in charge, then what do your subordinates see you do? What do your subordinates hear you say? What kind of representation are they receiving? And if you work for someone else, it's the same questions. What does the boss see me do? What does the boss hear me say? What kind of representation am I making of myself to my boss? And then you start thinking about, what do your friends and family think? What do they see? What do they hear? And so the question becomes, how well do you represent yourself? What shortfalls do you have? Now, when you first start looking, it's like you're looking at an overgrown lawn. There are some big, obvious problems, so you do a broad, just kind of general cut of the grass. You fix some of the big, easy problems that are obvious. But once you've done that, once you've gotten rid of some of those big, obvious problems, you notice some more detailed problems. So then you handle them. And once you've got those handled, you see even smaller and more detailed issues, so you start trying to fix them. And that's what you do with yourself. You continually detach, and then you look, and then you refine, and then you detach, and then you look, and then you refine, and then you detach, and then you look, and then you refine. That's what you do. That's how you get better. And that process doesn't stop. It can't stop, because if you stop refining, then the weeds grow back, and the next thing you know, you can't see yourself anymore. And when you can't see yourself anymore, when you stop looking at yourself, then you accept. You accept anything. And that's wrong. Don't accept the faults. Don't give yourself the benefit of the doubt. You've got to be your own harshest critic. And hold the line. And don't let go.
Ooh. Okay, that's super small little video, but super powerful if you were like really listening to what he said. And I love the analogy that he uses about a lawn, right? Like you come to a house and there's this huge mowed lawn. There's like, you know, you could see like a car maybe in the lawn or something. And so what do? You just give it like a little quick rundown, right? And maybe that's in a metaphor of like, you know, maybe you just start working out. You start switching out salads for pasta. You start drinking the shake instead of the pop, right? You start making these obvious choices. You quit smoking cigarettes because you realize right off the bat that's not going to help. And then there's a point where you go, well, shit, if I fix this, well, now I got to fix this. And oh my God, now that I'm realizing this, I'm seeing this. And you have to keep refining yourself. And I know that sometimes there's a point where you're just like, oh my God, like I didn't realize I was doing so much wrong, right? I don't know if you guys have ever had that. I've had that thought so many times where once you get exposed to something, you're like, oh my gosh, now that I'm realizing this, I'm realizing all of this. And I've just been doing this for years. And you almost want to be like, oh, this work is just hard and it's icky. And it just like, I'm so tired of constantly changing. I'm so tired of constantly refining myself. And so you stop. You press play every once in a while. And you start drinking that pop every once in a while, and you start having cigarettes again on the weekends. And all of a sudden, that lawn has grown back up. And you've lost yourself again, right? And we've all seen that happen. I've seen people, you know, get really into their health and fitness. And then life gets a little crazy, or the world gets a little crazy, and they just lose all the work that they did. Right? We've all been there. We've seen those people. You've seen the people who lose 100 pounds and then they gain 140 pounds back because they stopped refining themselves. They stopped assessing themselves. They stopped pushing themselves. And so I think if we could just constantly think of ourselves as that initial mow down is great, but the maintenance is the important part, right? It's the landscaping. It's now planting flowers. It's now putting some bricks around with some mulch. And it's about weed eating and getting all those extra little things to make it just look exactly how you want it. And even when you do that, there's going to be a point where you have to go back and pull weeds. You have to go back and re-mow because it rained, right? And the grass grew again. And you're going to have to go back and mow again and again and again and again. And I think that's really hard for some of us to mentally comprehend, to be like, oh, so this is just like forever. Yeah, right? I've had people message me and say, hey, you know, I plan on doing this workout and I'm hoping if I could just do this workout that, you know, I'll just be good. And I'm like, oh, no, that's just the beginning. Like once you get where you are, you have to keep working out. You have to keep going. You can't just get to a point and then be like, whew, thank God I got here. I'm good now. No. Now it's the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. And that's why so many people fall off their health journey, is because they don't realize it's forever and ever and ever. And they think that they can stop or slack at any time, and you can't. Once you start down that path, once you start mowing, you're going to realize there's so much to be done. And it can be overwhelming. And it can be scary, and it can be annoying. But before you mowed that down, you were dying to have that. And I think that's what we have to remind ourselves sometimes, is if you go back to that mindset of, man, I just want to lose 20 pounds. And once you lose the 20 pounds, you have to remind yourself you were dying to be there. So let's continue it, right? So I just really loved that. And so off of this, he has another video that I really started to enjoy as well, but I wanted to share it with you guys. It's a TED Talk. But I thought that was like a good little like introduction to what kind of person he is. Like, I think he's obviously ex-military. I really don't know why he's holding a switchblade during that video, but like it kind of makes it a little bit more intense. You're like, oh my God, I feel like this guy is legit, you know? Like he's in a podcast, like pointing a knife. Like that is so weird, but it's different. And I think it just kind of is probably also just playing on his character a little bit, probably. But I'm going to go ahead and click into the next video. The next one's about 14 minutes long, so we'll watch that, and then we'll kind of discuss what else he's got here.
War is a nightmare. War is awful. It is indifferent and devastating and evil. War is hell. But war is also an incredible teacher, a brutal teacher. And it teaches you lessons that you will not forget. In war, you are forced to see humanity at its absolute worst. And you are also blessed to see humanity in its most glorious moments. War teaches you about sorrow and loss and pain. And it teaches you about the preciousness and the fragility of human life. And in that fragility, war teaches you about death. But war also teaches you about brotherhood and honor and humility and leadership. And unfortunately, war teaches you the most when things go wrong. And for me, one of the most impactful lessons that I learned from war was in the spring of 2006 in the city of Ramadi, Iraq, which at the time was the epicenter of the insurgency, where brutal and determined terrorists ruled the streets with torture and rape and murder. And it was in one neighborhood of that city, during an operation that I was in charge of, when all hell broke loose. We had multiple units out on the battlefield fighting the enemy. We had friendly Iraqi soldiers, we had U.S. Army soldiers and U.S. Marines, along with small elements of my SEAL team. And then the fog of war rolled in, with its confusion and chaos and mayhem, and with its gunfire and enemy attacks and screaming men and blood and death. And in that fog of war, through a series of mistakes and human error and poor judgment and Murphy's Law and just plain bad luck. A horrendous firefight broke out. But this firefight, it wasn't between us and the enemy. This firefight, tragically, was between us and us. Friendly forces against friendly forces. Fratricide. The mortal sin of combat. And the most horrific part of war. And when it was over, and the fog of war lifted, one friendly Iraqi soldier was dead, 2 more were wounded, one of my men was wounded, the rest of my SEALs were badly shaken. And it was only through a miracle that no one else was killed. And it was reported up the chain of command what had happened. That we had fought and wounded and killed each other. And when we got back to base, things didn't get much better. There was a message waiting for me from my commanding officer. And it said, shut down all operations. It said that the commanding officer, the master chief, and the investigating officer were inbound to my location. And they told me to prepare a debrief to explain exactly what had happened on the operation and what had gone wrong. Now, I knew what this meant. It meant that somebody had to pay. It meant that somebody had to be held accountable. It meant that somebody had to get fired for what had happened. So, I began to prepare my debrief. And in it, I detailed every mistake that was made and who made it. And I pointed out every failure in the planning and the preparation and the execution in the operation. And I pointed out who was responsible for that failure. There was plenty of blame to go around. There were so many people that I could incriminate with guilt. But something wasn't right. For some reason, I just couldn't put my finger on who was at fault and who specifically I should blame for what had happened. And I sat and I went over it again and again, and I struggled for an answer. And then, when I was about 10 minutes from starting the debrief, that answer came, and it hit me like a slap in the face. And I realized that there was only one person to blame for the confusion, only one person to blame for the wounded men, and only one person to blame for the dead Iraqi soldier. And I knew exactly who that person was. And with that knowledge, I walked into the debriefing room with my commanding officer and the master chief and the investigating officer were sitting there waiting for me along with the rest of my men, including my SEAL that had been wounded, who was sitting in the back of the room with his head and his face all bandaged up. And I stood up before them and I asked them one simple question. Whose fault was this? One of my SEALs raised his hand, and he said, it was my fault. I didn't keep control of the Iraqi soldiers I was with, and they left their designated sector, and that was the root of all these problems. And I said, no, it wasn't your fault. And then another SEAL raised his hand and said, it was my fault. I didn't pass our location over the radio fast enough so no one knew what building we were in, and that's what caused all this confusion. It was my fault. And I said, no, it wasn't your fault either. And then another SEAL raised his hand. And he said, boss, this was my fault. I didn't properly identify my target, and I shot and killed that friendly Iraqi soldier. This was my fault. And I said, no, this wasn't your fault either. And it wasn't yours or yours or yours, I said as I pointed to the rest of the SEALs in the room. And then I told them that there was only one person at fault for what had happened. There was only one person to blame. And that person was me. I am the commander. I am the senior man on the battlefield, and I am responsible for everything that happens. Everything. And then I went on to explain to them some new tactics, techniques, and procedures that we were going to implement to ensure that this kind of travesty never happened again. And I will tell you something, it hurt. It hurt my ego. It hurt my pride to take the blame. But I also knew that to maintain my integrity as a leader and as a man, I had to take responsibility. And in order to do that, I had to control my ego so that my ego did not control me. And you know what? I didn't get fired. In fact, my commanding officer, who had expected excuses and finger pointing, when I took responsibility, when I took ownership, he now trusted me even more. And my men, they didn't lose respect for me. Instead, they realized that I would never shirk responsibility. And I would never pass that heavy burden of command down the chain and onto them. And you know what? They had the same attitude. Unlike a team where no one takes ownership of the problems and therefore the problems never get solved, with us, everyone took ownership of their mistakes. Everyone took ownership of the problems. And when a team takes ownership of its problems, the problems get solved. And that is true on the battlefield, it is true in business, and it is true in life. So I say, take ownership. Take extreme ownership. Don't make excuses. Don't blame any other person or any other thing. Get control of your ego. Don't hide your delicate pride from the truth. Take ownership of everything in your world, the good and the bad. Take ownership of your mistakes. Take ownership of your shortfalls. Take ownership of your problems. And then take ownership of the solutions that will get those problems solved. Take ownership of your mission. Take ownership of your job, of your team, of your future, and take ownership of your life. And lead. Lead. Lead yourself and your team and the people in your life. Lead them all to victory. Thank you.
Give me like 2 seconds here. Whew. So I hadn't actually watched that. Like, let's just think about that for a second, you know? Like, it could be so easy, you guys, to blame other people, you know? To be like, look at them. Look what they're doing over there. Look what they're doing over there. Good or bad, right? Oh, that's for them, not for me. Or that's because of them, not because of me. Go work.
I do like how I mess myself.
We'll do it in just a minute, okay? Give me some time. Crying. He's like, can you measure me? Yeah, it's interesting when you think about taking so much ownership for everything. Everything. The good and the bad, right? It's so easy to take ownership when it's good, right? Like, oh, look what I did. Look at all this good stuff I did. Look at my results. Look at my life. Look at my house. It's so easy to take ownership. You'd be like, yeah, I bought that. Yeah, I bought that car for myself. But the moment something goes bad, we want to pass it on. Right? Oh, well, that's because so-and-so didn't show up. And so if so-and-so didn't show up, then that affected me and blah, 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 blah. But if we can take ownership for the good stuff, we have to take ownership for the bad stuff too. As much as we don't want to. Right? I don't want to be like, yeah, I messed up. It's not fun to say, but it's empowering to be like, oh, I completely control this. It's not because so-and-so didn't do something. It's not because of them. It's because of me. I did this. And especially when it comes to our team, you know, I could easily be like, oh, I didn't hit 2-star diamond because so-and-so didn't keep her thing and this happened, or, you know what I mean? I could easily be like, well, it's her team and her team affects my team. It's my team. It's my team. You guys are a reflection of me. Right? And so if you look at him, if he would have said, yeah, that's right, you didn't make the call quick enough and you didn't do the bad, you know, you didn't say what you were supposed to on the radio, and you did get confused. If I sat there and just pointed and said, yeah, that's right, it was you guys. It was all of you. How would his team have looked at him? Right? Definitely not the respect that they did when he said, that's not your guys' fault. It's my fault. It's my fault that that happened to you guys. Right? And so, like, I've just been thinking about this whole pilot thing. When we were talking about, you know, Eric Thomas's flight assessment, about how everybody plays their part, right? And when I realized I'm the pilot, and you guys aren't going to make it to your destination if I'm distracted from flying, right? Because you guys trust that I'm going to get you there. You guys know if you're in my freaking airplane that I'm going to get you there. And if I said, oh, don't talk to me, I'm going to get distracted, and because you distracted me, I couldn't fly. I need to take ownership of that. I shouldn't let you distract me. I said, get back in your seat, get where you go. I gotta fly. I gotta fly, or none of us are gonna make it. Right? And so when you take ownership of flying the plane, you gotta rise to the occasion. And you have to know that whether you land correctly, take off correctly, fly through the turbulence, and tell your passengers to put on the seatbelt when they need to. That's my job. And I have to own that. That's the position I took on. And you guys have to think of yourselves as flying your own planes too sometimes, right? Like maybe your household, or maybe like teachers, and you guys are gonna have to fly that plane for those kids. That's a lot of responsibility, right? And you could easily say, well, our school board or our principal or our other teachers are distracting or are doing this or doing that. It doesn't matter. You're flying the plane for that classroom. Are you gonna get them there? Regardless of what the other teachers are doing, regardless of what your principal or superintendent or school board or blah, 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 or parents are saying or doing, you're going to be there for your kids. And it's really kind of interesting when you just take that on and you have that extreme ownership and then you rise to the occasion. How amazing you're going to feel. How empowered you're going to feel. Rather than feeling like a victim of your circumstances, of life, of business. You're taking ownership of it. And you're driving that freaking plane. And you said, no matter what, no matter if we are flying through a freaking thunderstorm, lightning, hail, rain, snow, sleet, we are going to get there. And we may have to land somewhere else, right? Because maybe our place where we thought we were going to land isn't there anymore. So now you're going to have to change. You're going to have to land somewhere else. And you could easily say, well, that airport didn't have their runway ready. Boo-hoo. Nope, you're not going to say that. You're going to say, no big deal. I know where else we can go. Not even worried about that. Not even going to spend a second worrying about that because I got a second plan and this is where we're going to land. And you know what? Maybe that's where we were supposed to land all along. Okay? Ownership. And I think when we start looking at it as an assessment of ourselves, right? Tying in everything we've kind of talked about this week, when we assess ourselves and we realize that we are capable of making decisions, you guys all made 10 decisions yesterday. In 5 seconds, 10 decisions, 5 seconds apiece, you made A or B.
What's this?
Right? Oh, that's Papa's tools. Don't mess with that.
Put it
Hey,
back
are
in
you
the
done
box.
eating? Are you done eating?
No.
Okay, I need you to go eat.
If you want to put this in the box.
Okay. Watch your toes, dude. I'm about to take off a toe. But I think it's interesting when we start looking as we assess ourselves and realize we just got to trust ourselves. I said that yesterday and it replayed in my head all day. Trust that you can make decisions and that whatever that decision is, go with it. And it may not be the right decision, you guys. You may learn, poof, that was wrong, right? Like we've all been there where you've made the wrong decision, right? And you're like, oh shit. But there's two things you can do then. You can either blame it on somebody else or you can take ownership of it. And I think a way to take ownership of it is asking yourself, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from that? Whew, that wasn't right. But what can I learn from that? I'm never going to make that decision again. I'm never going to make that decision while it's 10 o'clock at night and I'm tired, because man, the next morning that really messed me up. Right? I'm going to come over here and read the comments real quick because I haven't been able to. Yeah, sorry, Amanda. My hotspot is like subpar right now. So if you guys didn't get to see the video, hopefully you at least still got to hear it. But he was just a big old military guy standing on a stage. So it wasn't too much of a video. Yeah, Brittany, I agree. Like vulnerability, like, oh man, it's hard. Vulnerability is so hard. And I think once we come into acceptance of being vulnerable, I think that has a lot to do with our ego and pride, just like you said. You know, when we can bring our ego down of looking bad or, oh, I don't want to make the wrong decision. When we just say, well, I might make the wrong decision, but at least I'm making decisions. And if I make the wrong decisions, I'm going to know pretty quickly. And then I can learn and I can adjust. But having my ego in the way and my pride in the way, or leaving it to somebody else to decide, you're not going to learn anything. Right? I always hate, Mike and I always joke whenever you like walk into like Home Depot or something like that, and you're like, hey, do you know where this is? And they'll be like, oh, that's not my department. And you're like, okay. Okay. And they're like, oh, go ask so-and-so, right? Or you call onto like a hotline and you're like, hey, I need to talk about my order. And they're like, oh, well, I don't know about orders, so I'm going to have to send you to so-and-so. And everybody's always trying to pass off responsibility. Oh, it drives Mike and I crazy. It literally boils my blood instantly when I watch people pass on responsibility, that I'm like, wait, you could take 2 seconds and probably look in your computer and find the answer for me and tell me what aisle to go to. But instead, you pass it to somebody else. Oh, it just drives me insane. Don't be that person. Say, you know what? I might not know, but let's figure it out. I'm going to help you. And maybe you need to say that to yourself. I may not know all the answers, you guys. Trust me, I don't. I make a lot of freaking mistakes. But at least I'm making decisions. I'm showing up for life and not leaving it to chance. I'm making decisions and I adjust accordingly based off of when I get it wrong. And I'm like, oops, that was wrong. That was a good choice. Let's adjust. But if I said, oh, well, I made that decision because so-and-so told me this and I was going off of what she said, and so it's her fault. You guys know we've all done that. Right? And it feels better to be like, oh, that's her fault, not my fault. Whew. Thank God I'm still perfect. No. No, you're not. Because you're passing on responsibility when you need to take that ownership, regardless of whether you made a decision based off of some information somebody gave you that may have been wrong. You still got to own up to it. And you got to say, well, maybe I should have double checked the information they gave me. Not that I don't trust them, but I want to make a decision based off of what I know, not what somebody else told me. Right? So I love that. I love that idea of like being vulnerable enough with yourself to let that pride down, let that ego down and say, how can I own up to this? How can I take responsibility for this? Rather than saying, how can I get out of this? How can I blame it on somebody else so I don't look bad? Say, how can I take responsibility for this? How can I change? Let my ego down, right? Like your little ego meter, like, like if you have to like imagine yourself doing that, do it, right? Okay, Alicia, I'm reading this one. Extreme Ownership is a book about me. Ooh, well, you have to let me know who wrote that or what it entails. I would love to know about Extreme Ownership. This guy was very different than anything I think we've listened to, which I thought was kind of fun. Most of it, mostly I get like maybe like motivating, but like, this was like a little bit more harsh, right? It was like more of a harsh reality. But I think at this point, you guys are ready for something like that, right? I couldn't imagine just sending this to anybody, but you guys have been doing the work. You guys have been working really freaking hard. Now it's time to take ownership of it. And it's time to take it to that next level. It's time to keep mowing that grass. It's time to start planting those flowers, trimming the bushes, right? Cutting the fat. It's like what we like to call it. Like, you guys have gotten this far, but you didn't get this far just to come this far. What's next? There's more. There's more to mow. There's more to trim. And I know that's hard because you're like, oh, but I've already done so much work, right? But I'll tell you guys right now, I'm in year 5 of coaching. And here I am still growing. Where are you? Year 1? 6 months? Year 2, maybe? We got a long way to go. We got a long way to go. It's called your lifetime. And I think the moment we just know that it's going to be a lifetime, not a year, not 2 years, not 5 years, forever, right? Sandlot style. Forever. Forever we will be growing. So there's a lot of work to be done. So maybe you've made it this far. Awesome. Congratulations. Now get back to work, right? Pat yourself on the back. Acknowledge how far you've come. And dive right back in and be ready to work again. And refine. And keep mowing. And keep planting. And keep going. Right? Okay, I want to pop over here and read some more questions here. Or some more. Yeah, I actually wonder, Alicia, if that is it, because that was the name of the video, was Extreme Ownership. So it probably was him. What was his name? Like Jocko or something like that? Jocko Wilkinson or something like that? I'll have to look it up. Oh, I can't wait. You'll have to let us know. You're going to go home and start digging for it now. Okay, Bethany, I'm reading. My husband and I were working on this. Steps. Yeah. Yep. It's okay to make mistakes. Absolutely. Oh man, I'm actually been working with this with Derek, and he's only 6. Helping him understand, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. What can we learn from it? It's not a bad thing. Mistakes are how you get to know what life is, right? And I love that you can work on that with your kids, because right now, us as adults are trying to fix all these problems. But what if we could just instill these thoughts in our children so when they're 30, they don't have to try to fix themselves, right? Like, what if Derek at 20 can already take extreme ownership for his life rather than years bullshit adding up, right? Because that's where we're at, right? We're just in the process of like, holy crap, exposing all this crap that we need to fix and work on and expose and break down. But what if we could design a new generation that just took ownership? I watched this movie. So it actually took us 3 days to watch this movie. But we watched the on Netflix. It's called the F It List. I won't say it, but have you guys seen that? It's on Netflix. Go check it out. It's actually really good. I was actually very surprised at how much I ended up liking it. I thought it was going to be that kind of some like silly like kid movie or something, like kid parties and then he goes to college, but it wasn't at all. It was actually really, really good. But it's about how this kid, you know, is expected to go to all these Ivy League colleges, and he's just like, is this right for me? Like, is this really even what I want to do? And he goes through this whole like, F it, like I just don't care. I just F it, you know? And then his whole life is based off of what his parents have decided for him rather than what he has decided for himself. He had to learn at the end. Ultimately, the decision is his. It's his life. And he started to take ownership for his life instead of letting his parents make all the decisions for him. What if we could create a whole generation that instead of making decisions for them, we allowed them to make decisions for themselves and learn from them? Right? I know when I got an underage when I was 18, and my parents made me go to court. I wasn't allowed to have a lawyer. They weren't trying to get me out of it. They're like, nope, good luck. Go to court, stand in front of a judge, do your community service. You're not getting out of anything. And oh my gosh, I knew that I could have gotten out of it. I could have gotten out of it, right? If my parents would have just like stepped up and probably paid for a lawyer and fought it for just a little bit. I was so mad they didn't do that. But I'll tell you what, I never got an underage after that. I never got in trouble for drinking at all after that. Now, I still drank, but smarter. Much smarter. Had they taken that opportunity to get rid of that for me, I probably would have gotten in trouble again and again. Right? You think about it like that. What if we just let them learn the hard way by making their own decisions, but teaching them how to take ownership of it by doing it ourselves too, you know, leading by example, right? Not telling them, oh, you need to take ownership while you're out there blaming your coworkers for why you hate your work, right? You can't do that. We have to lead from the front. We have to lead by example. So the more ownership we take for our own lives, that's what they're going to do too. Okay? So I love that you're teaching that to Bethany. That's so cool. Yeah, Brittany, what was it that Danny kept saying to him when it's the week of, it was
solving
something.
your own problems.
Yes. That's right. So when they were on vacation in Florida, I went over and saw her for a little bit, and he kept saying it's the week of solving your own problems, because he would be like, hey, can you hand me that towel or something like that, and you know, your husband would be like, yes, and he was like, figure it out. You know, and you could have easily got the towel for him. You could have easily told him the answer to these things, but he can also do it for himself too. And the more we empower them to do their own stuff, they're going to realize how capable they are. Right? I love that. Yeah. Jocko Willink. I don't know how you say his last name. Willink. It was him, Alicia. No way. What are the odds of that? That's pretty cool. You're going to have to pull out that book. I bet it's pretty good. I bet it's good. If that's like his little speech, I can only imagine the details that he probably gets into his book with that. I might have to get a copy of that. I wonder if he has it on audiobook. I'm more of an audiobook kind of person than I am reading pages. I fall asleep when I read all the time. Like I'll be reading, I'll be like 2 pages in and I'm like, but if I can listen to an audiobook, like while I'm cleaning or while I'm like doing the dishes or just like sitting here and doing work, like I'll listen to audiobooks, and it's a little bit easier for me, but I'm gonna have to look that up. I love that, Christy. A mistake is an experience. Yeah. Like, and you guys, just because something didn't go according to plan doesn't mean it was wrong, right? Like, it's a learning experience. And I think also when we become adults, we think that we have to have it all figured out. Like, I should know this by now. But who says that? Who's on the timeline for that? Nobody's keeping tallies. Nobody's saying by 30, you can't make any more mistakes. And that's what happens. And so we don't even try because we're so afraid to make a mistake that we hold ourselves back because we're 30 and we should already know all of this. Nope, you shouldn't. So keep trying. You're literally possibly a third of the way through your life. You have so much to go. Right? So much to go. As long as you take care of yourself. Okay, so let me see what else I got. Trust your kids to make good decisions. Helicopter mom, lone mower parents, now snowplow parents are ruining their children. Yeah, I love those names. Sorry, those made me laugh. Are ruining their children. Yeah, and so that's why you should really watch this movie, the Fuck It List. Sorry, the F It List, because that's what his parents are. They said they had an 18-year plan for him. They wouldn't let him play basketball. They made him play clarinet because they knew that going into college that they would look for somebody who did this, not this. And it was their 18-year plan for him. You know? It's kind of interesting when you look at it like that. Like, I don't have a plan for Derek. I couldn't imagine being like, like, no, like he's a kid. He'll do whatever he wants. Plus he's half Derek or Mike and I, so I know that kid's doing whatever he wants. Go ahead, Kristen.
So when I first got into recovery and did inpatient treatment, please, my mom was like, "I'll be there on the weekends. Don't ask for nothing." So like literally my mom would bring me a carton of cigarettes to get me through just because she was like, she's going to lose it. You know what I mean? But it was like outside of that, people's parents would bring them like snacks and Mountain Dews and cookies. She's like, this isn't camp.
Yeah.
You're an addict. You need help. But we had moms, like one of the girls who was in treatment with me, her mom would tell the people who work there, oh, no, she won't like that. She won't do that. She doesn't have a choice. Leave. And so they literally told her, you can't come back to the facility until she can leave because you're wrong. That's why we do this job and you sit out, because she constantly enabled her. Well, I feel like we should ease her into, no, you've been easing her into it for 6 years. She's still getting.
Yeah. That's why she is where she is.
Yeah. Like, how many times has she been to jail? How many times has she been to this treatment center? They literally had to cut her off from coming because the parents enable them so much. The kids become so codependent on their parents. And it's like, at what point are you hurting your child actually? At what point are you actually stunting their own growth? Yeah. Because you feel like it should be a certain way. Not everybody, just like I literally put in the chat, I was like, how do you retain information on an audiobook while you're doing dishes and stuff like that? If I don't have the book in front of me and I'm not focused on it, I'm not getting any of that information. And that's because we all learn different. You have to learn your child. Yes. You have to learn your child and like how they function. I'm still learning how I learn sometimes with certain things. It's different.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's really cool too, to even to just point out is like, we're all so different. Right. And so, and even your children may be completely different from you, which is weird to think. You're like, they're a product of me. They should function like me. Right. That's half my brain inside of their brain. But maybe it's not. Maybe they're completely different from you, right? I love audiobooks. I don't know why. I just feel like when I hear it read by the person who wrote it, it just, I can feel it. Rather than reading it how I think they're saying it, when they're reading it, I can hear it how they like really wanted to say it. And so I kind of zone out and I'm just like, in their words. It's interesting. But yeah, and mainly I had to start doing that because literally every time I would sit down to read, I would fall asleep. I would start going cross-eyed reading, and I would read a whole paragraph and realize I don't even know what the hell I just read. And so I'd have to go back and reread. And then I would be like, oh my God, I just read that paragraph again and nothing. Like my mind will just like fly away like a little bird. And I'm just like, what the heck? And also when I'm reading, I can't do anything else, right? Like you have to sit and read and really focus. And with the way my brain works, I'll be like, oh man, those dishes need done. But I'm reading, but I'm thinking about the dishes. And so I feel like almost I get really antsy when I start reading in a book, because I'm like, I feel like I should be doing something else. I feel like I should be productive. Even though reading is a part of my production, it's like I'll get a few pages in and then I just close it and I have to go do something. And so it's very interesting. And I think that's too, is like, we have to find what works for us, right? For us, not anybody else, right? And it may be different than what your husband does, your sister does, your best friend does. It's going to be different. And you have to be okay with that. That's the biggest thing. It's just being okay with being different. And be like, you know what? I love that that works for you. I'm just different. I appreciate you and you appreciate me. And here we are. Different. Coexisting. Not one's wrong, one's right, one's better, one's worse. Nope. Coexisting. You do you, I do me, and we celebrate each other regardless. It's pretty cool if you think about it, right? We don't need to point the finger or anything like that. It's just different. And then you can learn from other people too, right? Like maybe I can learn from Kristen, like how do you focus? How do you get in those books and focus? People in college, literally, my roommate, in my sophomore year, she used to just laugh at me because she would literally come into the room and I would just be sleeping with like a book on my lap. And she would just be like, really, Jen, you're sleeping again? I was like, I was trying to read. And she would just laugh at me. And I was like, I don't know why I can't do this. It's just been like something, it's like reading just soothes me. Maybe it was because my mom used to read me when I was little and that would put me to sleep, you know, like book before bed. And so I think I just like register reading with sleeping. Like maybe that's just something that my brain just like, oh, sleep, you know. It's just interesting. So all right, ladies, it's 9:15, so I'm gonna let you go. I gotta get ready for school. We've got math today. Pretty excited. Derek's already been over here doing math, actually. He's like, look, I already did it. I was like, dude, that doesn't count. You can't just do it on your, I was like, we gotta work through it. So thank you, ladies, very much for being open to this week as well. Assessing yourself, taking ownership for yourself, and be willing to continue working on yourself and reassess and continue working and reassess and continue working, and trust yourself that you're capable of continuing the work. Cool? Whew. Good week. All right, tomorrow's music day. I'll have a theme. I don't know what it is yet, but I'll let you guys know. And we'll come tomorrow and celebrate and dance and listen to some music and just kind of keep it lighthearted because we've done a lot of hard work this week. And then Friday, as you guys know, that 6:30 a.m. workout time. Boom, let's do it. All right, ladies, I hope you have a fabulous Wednesday. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great day, okay? Bye.